Hey Jen, since it may just be you, I think I'll unmute if you want to pipe in at any point.
Okay, thanks.
It masses on Zoom. I don't.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm in California or I'd be there. So thank you.
I'm glad it's working. That's great. Hi. Well, I'd like to start. I've got stuff to do, right? Yeah, I don't know that we can vote.
We don't have a quorum yet.
Yeah.
So it's useless to start. Whose phone is ringing? That's not mine, right? Oh, good. It's like, I'm trying to answer your. I am, and it's not working, and it's not me, and
That's Corinne who is outside, I think, of the wrong building.
I know Rebecca.
yes, how are you?
Wow, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Hi. Good to see you.
Nice. It's supposed to recognize the edges of the paper, but the data is really hard. Oh, was it the color? Well, and then there were two things on the bottom. I think I'm just wanting to print everything that came with the agenda. I haven't read it yet. Yes. I'm gonna have to like it tomorrow. Period. Yeah. Like I said, I keep forgetting I have. But you guys can. It feels like it, but it's just really yes. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, that's kind of an answer. But I love when it's worried. I so that's one set. Well, yes, so you have just having to do it. No, I think you can get anywhere already. How are you? Good, sir. How are you doing? And then so it's my hand, and there's this beautiful scratchy green in it too, so.
Yeah, and it kills me not to start on time.
Oh, so Rebecca can't be here.
No.
So we won't have the video.
Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate you.
Well, I think once Shannon comes in, we should probably start, and hopefully we'll get a couple more parents in before we have any voting items. Maybe we'll skip, I think we'll skip to rules of order first. We should have 2 more parents in the faculty to vote on minutes.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm really sorry.
How you doing, Brian?
Yeah.
Oh. I just thought if we read it before, we can just hit the ground running. We need 2 extra parents. Shannon's in the bathroom. Oh. Yeah, I think we can. I know Shannon's in the restroom, so let's just. Jen, can you hear well enough if we don't do microphones?
When you weren't right in front of it, I couldn't hear anything. It just sounds like muddled.
We'll do it, we'll do it.
Sorry. It's the worst.
Hey, Kristen, this is.
The fundraiser, yeah. Oh,
So just make sure I get it back. He was like, everything's happening. No, I promise I'll bring it back to you. The fundraising thing.
oh, this is the only one that we're doing. Yeah, yeah, I can sign that.
Couldn't find it.
Oh, perfect, thanks.
From today.
Okay. We're gonna get started. I thought we could get away without microphones, but Jen, who is with us, she's the only one zooming, so I decided we'd just unmute her and she could, oh, she's actually one of our parents, yes, we totally have corn. But she said she can't hear without the microphone, so we'll just pass these two around. But thank you for coming on this beautiful sunny day. I think we'll just go ahead and we'll get started. Everybody received the minutes from both of our last two meetings. So I'll entertain any motions to approve, disapprove, or amend.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And second, all in favor?
Sorry, tell me your names.
Oh, Elizabeth Warren.
Annie is being so sweet to take minutes for us today, so thank you to her. All in favor of approving both the minutes for March 13th and March 23rd, 2022?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, great. We have one fundraising request for the auto department doing a car show on June 3rd, hoping to raise $1,500. I'll entertain any motions on this request. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Great.
Yes, yes, let's do it.
You know, it'll only take a few more minutes to just keep this act going, and we're out of here, so. Okay, great. Well, before we move much further. Oh, and you know what? Okay, so as I mentioned in my email, oh, and please don't forget to sign the roll. That'll help Annie immensely. When we had our very first meeting, do you remember like years ago when we had the first meeting of the year? And it was a little bit chaotic and I went home and I thought, you know, we should probably set up some rules of order. And then, you know, the whole year has just flown by really fast, but it was very clear that there was more of a need after our last meeting. And so I apologize, I didn't send it out by email before, but with your agenda is just a proposed simple set of rules of order that I thought we could just take a minute and see if this is what we'd like to do. I felt like in the middle of the meeting last month wasn't probably the best time to start like teaching everybody how to do all these motions and things like that, but I really appreciated the request to get this started. I think it will really help. I just pulled this from another SCC. I liked the beginning part of just a reminder of just having civil discourse, which is what these rules of order are meant to help us out with. I think we can, you know, review. I don't think anyone has any objections to just listening and being nice, but in terms of conducting the meeting, the thing that I thought would be most helpful to just take a minute and get feedback on, because I just kind of threw it out here just to get us started, but was figuring out how to incorporate public comment. And we can do it however we want. If we want to just have meetings open, it makes it trickier if you're going to start using rules of order. You really should have like the voting membership be the ones making motions, but at any point you can, we'll go over it in just a moment, but one of the motions you can make is to suspend the rules if you want to be able to just kind of have a little bit more flexibility interacting with guests who come and join our meetings. But one suggestion that we discussed in between since last meeting was if we wanted to, first of all, we have on the agenda the link for anybody who wants to submit feedback for us to review, which I sent by email. We had 2 extra responses. And if anybody on there ever asks to speak, there's an option to choose to speak in the meeting, and we can certainly make sure we put some time for them, but I haven't had any of those yet, through the feedback form. But one idea is just to, like, the school board has kind of a set chunk right at the beginning of the meeting, to if anybody wants to have any public comment. And we could decide to do something like that, and then if we want to talk more through the meeting, we could just suspend the rules. I just kind of randomly put out, 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes, and up to maybe 3 minutes a person, but since we're not operating under rules yet, I'd be curious what our guests think of that, or what anybody else here, I mean, is that something we want to give a try? Or do you guys want to have it less strict than that, or what are some thoughts on that?
You can rephrase that question, you tell me. You want us to, if we want to go ahead with this.
Yeah, like, how do we want to handle it when we have people come? Because as we've seen, yeah, so 3 minutes. Yeah, about 15 minutes total, and if we wanted to extend that, we could suspend some rules and have some flexibility, but does that sound like a reasonable start? If that's what people like, and then,
Ask a question.
yeah.
So, I guess, because I want Jen to hear me. I like Jen. So would it be scheduled speakers, they would be scheduled before the meeting, or just the first 5 that show up and have those 3 minutes?
That's a good point. I mean, I think if we've got it on the agenda for people to give us a heads up, and I think that I would probably give priority to those, and then if we have more that show up and we want to hear them, then we can.
Vote to suspend.
Yeah.
Why
Unless
do
you
we
have
have rules? If we're gonna get rid of them, this, because the room's full of people, why do we have the rules?
Well, because you can choose if you're going to suspend rules or not.
But I would like to see this body take care of the business it has to, and not spend 2 extra hours with people randomly shouting out things, and I think that was really hard.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is in order to suspend the rules, you have to vote for it. So if the body doesn't want to, then it doesn't. If, it just gives us at least a starting point. And you've got the flexibility, but we can decide at any time. For suspending the rules, it takes actually a 2/3 vote of the body. So it's a high threshold to change this rule. Any other thoughts on that? Yeah.
It does say, at least, oh, sorry.
I know, I'm sorry. I had a third one and I can't get it done.
Oh, gosh. I do like to point out, though, it does say in here that, the online feedback form or request to speak at SCC meeting, and then it says public comment will take place. And so it feels like public comment is tied to those people who requested, but maybe that's the clarity we need to know, is if we want that only to be people who requested, or if we want to open that up. I do like the idea of having public comment, and I also like the idea of it being contained and that being the like expectation. Anyway.
So you're saying within the rules of order that you'd specify?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is grammatically, it looks like it could go either way, right, based on the way it's written, and so I think we might want to clarify. Does that mean that the people at the beginning are only those who requested, or are we comfortable letting that be whoever shows up at the beginning? I think that's something that we should like decide on what we feel about.
What if should we just say those who signed up in advance get the priority, and then it fills up the time? And then if we want to extend it, then we have to decide that in the meeting.
Oh, I see. I just have a microphone.
I think the president should have some discretion, like if someone comes but maybe didn't know to sign up in advance to save words, but maybe as long as we're within our time frame, and then if we have to suspend the rules to take it longer, depending on the issue.
I mean, I intend to usually, well, actually, I shouldn't say usually, nobody's asked to speak at a meeting in the feedback form, but we could put on that form that this gives us a heads up of how many people might be interested, but it's no guarantee of the opportunity for public comment, and then we could just leave it. I mean, I guess the chair is an easy person to just kind of have it be orderly, but we could have it be more flexible if we wanted to.
I would just say that whatever we decide, I think it should be a little more clear in this rules of order, so
Mhm.
that it's like obvious, whatever the decision. That's all I was.
Do you want to just have the chair determine that?
I feel like this should be a discussion. I feel like it's just like you and me making a choice. I don't like that. I shouldn't be doing that.
What does anybody else think?
So I know you said chair discretion.
I do think, I can clarify on the feedback form, whatever you say here though. For
I
sure.
think at the school board meetings, which run very smoothly, people can come in and sign up right then. And if there's too many, then the people that signed up later don't get to speak. But they don't have to ask in advance, and that seems to work pretty well. Yeah,
We could just take that off the feedback request form and just give us your feedback, and then that way, if they don't end up having time to speak, at least their comments have been sent to the SCC before the meeting. Could just do it that way.
So it would just be a sign up, which is first come, first served.
And
Yes,
I can
that's
go
right.
ahead. I'll go ahead and type that up in this document, and then also on the feedback form, I'll make that change so that people understand. I know that's great feedback. Okay, this is actually like state law, but we've tried to be a little bit better about getting the agenda out a week before, but we will definitely be more on top of that. We're working on the website. Minutes have been going up, and the chair conducts meetings in absence, the vice chair conducts. They will be just some very simplified rules, which I've kind of put here if we want to adopt those. And then this last bullet point just kind of walks through, for those who aren't as familiar, just sort of how things work when you're using parliamentary procedure. I have chaired meetings with this, but it has been 20 years. So this is a nice mellow environment today. So we'll be able to kind of figure this out together. But I just kind of put just some basic motions. I sort of edited this a little bit on the second page that we can have copies at for our, especially at our first meeting when we maybe have some new members at the beginning of the next school year. But these just kind of walk you through. Basically, I like that basically most motions are main motions. You want to do something, you just move to do it. It will let you know if it requires a second. If you've got a crazy person that's always coming up with great ideas, it's not going to go anywhere as long as there's not a second crazy person that goes along with it. But that's kind of the idea behind having things be seconded, and then is it debatable? Can it be amended? And then what kind of vote it requires? So Becky, as you mentioned, like to suspend the rules is sort of a big deal. And so that requires 2/3 vote, which is a high threshold. And typically that is determined by like consensus, which I feel like we've usually had, which is really good. So quorum, which I think is actually dictated beyond us, is just always having at least 2 more parents than school or faculty. And I don't know, we don't have to have this on here. It just was on this example, and I thought, it's not a bad idea. But if you have a conflict of interest, I don't know. I wondered if all of us as parents have a conflict of interest. Like, I didn't know if we just cut that. I don't know. Maybe we can think about this. But what do you guys think, just in general? Does that sound?
Kristen, and from my experience, the conflict of interest, people really don't understand what is a conflict of interest. I'm on another board, and we had somebody who was going to benefit from the decision. So that, and like financially benefits. So I think that's where the line starts, because obviously we're trying to do this for the benefit of our children as the collective. But if you're going to personally benefit, that's where the conflict comes from. So I think if anyone's like, yeah, let's bring in that vendor for whatever, and now that vendor is part of your company or part of your family's company, that's where that conflict comes in. There's some good language in the governor's manual on boards and committees and councils like this that maybe we just share for the next meeting, so people understand like this might be a conflict for me and I just will excuse myself from voting. That's generally how. And then as the chair, if you're aware of someone's conflict, you can request that they consider not voting because of that conflict. You may not know, but the chair does have that prerogative to encourage someone to not vote in a particular situation if there's a potential conflict.
Well, maybe this is probably pretty reasonable. A member who has a personal or private interest in any proposed or pending matter which presents a conflict of interest will disclose such interest and will not vote unless the member's participation is necessary to obtain a quorum or otherwise to enable the council to act.
Yeah, is that sufficient? I think I just saw it get into trouble in my last board thing. So I'm like, oh, and we have it in our board at USBE too, where they have to be like, oh, I'm legal counsel for the school district, I'm out. I doubt that it's gonna happen very often in a school community council setting though.
And that's why I think it's been nice that we've had things fairly flexible and not super, super formal. So I think even with these motions, we can, I mean, it's kind of how we've sort of worked a little bit, but at least now we've got some framework for when we have 100 people that show up, then we can kind of have a little bit more order. So I don't know if we, Jen, I do have these, but I will have to email it to you. Maybe this is something that we can formally approve next meeting when everybody's had a chance to actually look at it, but I think we could like practice maybe going by these today, which is similar to what we've done anyway. Does that sound like a good plan to everybody? And then actually, next meeting's our last meeting. Assuming we get through the land trust, it's fine today and don't need to spend a lot more time on that. Something that I think would be helpful to do, and maybe we do it in conjunction with approving these rules of order, is having some established policies for the SCC in terms of what are our rules for the membership? Like, or do we want to have a set number limit of parent members versus, or what's our process for elections for new members? Because last time we just kind of cited everybody who showed up, but that first meeting was, we just kind of voted everybody in. But I know some schools like at Clayton, they only have 8 spots on the SCC. I'm not proposing that. I think it's great to have as much involvement as possible, but because there's that few spots, they have a process where people who are interested can submit an email and with some specific information. And if they end up having more than 8, then they actually let people provide bio information and things like that. So I'm not proposing that, but I'm just proposing that we should have some sort of a system in place, and also more written out election language to just kind of help the election for the leadership next year. So I'm happy to draft that, and then maybe we can go and look at that in advance of the meeting, and then we can actually vote and kind of adopt these different policies formally next month.
Question,
Yeah.
I don't know, if I need a magic stick, yes, you do. So you're in for 2 years though, right? We won't have an election next year.
No, I don't,
Yeah.
my membership, I'm in my second year. We're in our second year.
No, wait, as
Yeah.
chair. Chair position is 2 years.
Your contract was extended.
Well, we'll have to see, is that like state dictated, or do we need to decide what the terms are?
Jen, can you help us out?
I can look it up while we're in this meeting and find out. It seems like usually you have a chair who then has like a co-chair that generally that co-chair then takes responsibility, but I will look into it. Because you try not to leave someone, like you're still here, our previous chair, which is nice, to help support a new chair, because as Christian knows, it's kind of a big thing to be in this role, and to have the support of the prior chair is helpful. But I will look into it here in just a second.
And that would mean that if you're elected in your second year, then you're technically going into your third year as a member. And I'm pretty sure the 2 years thing is a state state law that's written in Utah code. And so you just need to make sure that the chair thing doesn't contradict.
Okay, because I thought, Elizabeth, you did 2 years, right? Seems like a long time ago, I don't remember.
I feel like I did.
I think we
I feel
did,
like I did.
so I guess I just assumed that that was the rule. At one point we had talked about having as many people on as would be willing to come, because we didn't have enough support. But prior to that, we talked about only having a specific number of people per zip code that feeds into East, so that it's equitable for everybody. So if it's 2 people per zip code, or
How many zip codes do we have?
no, I was gonna look that up last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are all things I think we should talk about. And then what I did read is that whatever rules and I mean, not necessarily rules of order, but like especially our election rules are supposed to stay in place for 4 years, so that they're not changing year to year. And so I don't think we have anything that's been formally adopted by this body. And so I feel like we should do that kind of before we finish out the school year. And then that'll be in place at least for the next 4 years. So maybe just have it be something you're thinking about, and I'll send some things out some different ideas and different points that we'll want to consider out by email, and then we can make some final adoptions next month.
I'd love to have something in there that gives point of privilege to ensuring that both sides of the valley are covered, and to some level as equally as possible. I think we have a lot of representation from the east side at this point, and how might we promote getting more from the west side, given what a large percentage of east comes from the west side of the valley.
And Pam and I actually spoke since our last meeting about what are some things that we can do to encourage more participation. And she mentioned targeted emails to different zip codes and things like that. So that's, I mean, obviously we don't get the people here for us to vote for them, we're limited, but I think there's a lot that we can do leading up to, especially if I will still be around at least in the summer, to be able to get a lot of participation in that first meeting. Utah law allows you to either do the elections for the chair and actually for the SCC membership, either at the May meeting or at the beginning of the new school year. I think it's best to do it the new school, just because you've got people that have freshmen and they're just not even thinking about SCC yet. And that's what we've typically done, is done it at the first meeting. So that will give us time, Pam and I and anybody else who's interested in really putting out some outreach efforts. So. Okay, well, if we are ready to go, let's dive into the land trust plan. I sent it out by email, and I was hoping you don't have a way to connect your computer to the monitor or anything. I was missing the adapter that I needed to do
Were
it.
you? I mean, yeah, because I don't carry for them, but if you want.
The port's here, but it logs into, it goes into the HDMI port.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay.
But you sent out a nice, it seemed like I might have been missing the end actually, but
Oh, no.
was it all on there, or did I not print it? Something happened, so. No, you're good.
Okay.
So,
My copy, I think, has everything, but everybody got, the online system really is tricky, and it was hard for Pam to be able to print it out, so we kind of just reformatted it, and that's what we sent out by email, so that it's a little easier to kind of navigate. But what Pam did is she incorporated the other half of the music teacher that was the directive from our last meeting. She also removed the advocates, and then just kind of shaved other things off of some of the proposals that she had, so that the budget balanced, and then is planning to cover those through other funds. And so that is the result of what you're looking at here. And so in terms of deciding what we want to do or adopt or amend, you've got kind of two things to consider. We've got the dollar amounts of what we actually are funding, so the money side of it. But if you also have any suggestions or thoughts in terms of the way that the goals or the action plan steps are written, that would be something else if anybody has anything that they would have. So hopefully, does everybody kind of have a copy or can pull it up and is able to take, I have, well, I can't use my computer, but I have my. Let's see, Jen has given us.
Like, I'll email them out. So the code has some very specific requirements about election. So if you have more than 6 people, you're required to have an election who want to be on the council. And then annually, you're required to vote on the chair and vice chair. So there's no like build support in this system, although you could have that. Currently, you have to vote every year for the chair and vice chair.
And that actually makes sense to me because you're a member of the history in your chair, so. Hopefully somebody wants to. Okay, well, I think we'll turn, oh, perfect, and that bottom switch will turn this light off right here. Or maybe the other way, I can't remember what works best. And then the top one turns off.
I don't know what it turns off, I'm worried if that's too much. Can you guys see that?
Oh, there you go. So I don't know which is better. Do you want the lights all the way off or just?
Yeah, all the way out. I think it's better.
Is there a way to direct the camera at whatever is being shown?
Yep.
We got it. No, that's good.
Okay. So I don't know that, I mean, do we feel like we need to do a quick overview or do you guys, did everybody read it? Like, do we want to just go into whatever thoughts people might have about it or?
Just make
exactly what we're. We're gonna vote on the amount, just want to be clear about.
Yeah, really today, this is what everyone needs to really hear is this is going to be turned into the school board and to the state for input. And after that, unless they send it back to us with any changes, it's kind of done. They're like going, yep, yay, then we're done. So this is it. I'm really glad you sent it out.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe I'll just take one quick second to just, as you can see, we have 4 different goals, and you can see the different check boxes that Pam has to check as she puts those in, but as we talked about, the first one is incorporating some AVID, and she's got multiple points that go over kind of what the plan is, but in terms of the actual funding, she's got half of a counselor, which would be Cassidy, who's been with us all this last year. And so that would be just a continuation of her same position. Half of that, and then also $10,000 in order to help cover an intern. And then goal number 2 is a focus on math. And so we would be doing half of a math teacher, and Pam would be covering the other half. The third one is focus on.
Where is that?
Oh, I emailed this out. And then Pam has it up here, just kind of in a different format.
I was technically.
The third goal was to boost the reading. And so that would be 2/3 of the reading teacher that we hired last year that I mean, I'll let Pam speak for herself, but that's been a really great position that Pam would like to keep on. And I know for those of us who wrote this plan last year, that's something that I think would be a good thing to keep. And then incorporating AVID strategies throughout the school, that would be 8,000. And then the fourth final goal would be Annie's addition of the half of a music teacher to make that position full-time. And then that gets us to, as you look at the top, which
I'm gonna go back to the top. I was trying to.
I don't know if yours has the math breakdown, but
I think it's at the bottom or line.
okay. So if we do what I just outlined and what's on this attachment, with the money that we are carrying over and receiving for next year, that would give us about $7,600 left over. And at the end of the plan, Pam had typed up kind of how she could use any leftovers or surprise additions that get brought in through the year, which include helping students prepare for the ACT and AP tests. So kind of study materials, books she could use 3,000 for that. And then up to $10,000 to buy more laptops at about $400 a piece. That does not mean that actually happens. That's just kind of built in there so that if there's extra money, we don't have to go through this whole process again next year. So I think with that, why don't we entertain any motions to either approve or amend or make changes?
Wait, I got it.
Yeah.
In this plan, the student advocate, how many hours for person has been cut off from the plan?
Nothing's really cut off. We just need to find different places to fund people, which we do. I mean, this land trust plan is not meant to do everything. It's just to help support our school needs, our greatest needs, and our students with greatest needs. And we will have advocates in another way.
I've been through the school. I think there's a ton of potential with student advocates. Where we might be able to have these student advocates follow up on the 10% that we are going to let's fail. So just a thought, and so another question is there, could you hire more?
Yes, if we can find good applicants, we can.
Right.
Is that the limitation or money?
Like all last year was not having very very many people apply that were really capable and able and willing. So yeah, I have money to hire advocates I have all year, but I haven't found enough that come and wanna work and then that stay. But we're constantly kind of struggling to do that, so. We've done better this year than last year. That's what I guess my people are here like, yep, it's way better.
So you could, if you had like the Dave Burst extends, like 12 of those guys. If you had 12 of those guys, you would entertain hiring Daves to help out. You like to throw me up for all the
Yeah,
things?
you should come and watch it in the hospital. We are in the process always of trying to hire good people. That's part of what we do.
Can you share how many advocates we have?
Well, it's kind of.
Like, I have no
moving
idea.
target. We have, five right now. And there's, I think, some shifting that's gonna happen and we're gonna try to hire some more, so.
Are they part-time?
Yep, they're the part of our 29.5 hour huge cadre in our building.
So they show up for 2 or 3 hours a day.
No, well, it's more than that, maybe almost the whole school day.
Yeah.
So it's more than that, they end up being quite a part of the building, so. Cause they're there more.
What would the ideal number be? Is there an ideal number that would?
And could they work after?
If we assign them to work after hours, they can, but if they can't in general. I would say, I'd say like 10.
Would be ideal.
Yep.
Double.
Cause they would, yeah, all 29.5, so up to 29.5 hours a week. Then they would have all the places, we have places set out, but we wanna have people like kind of, they sit there and go in certain parts of the hall or watch, a bathroom in this whole hall or whatever. And we don't have enough to do that, but we have in our mind a whole plan of how that would work, so.
We have enough money for 10 people?
Yeah, I think so. We had some COVID money that came to try to, and that's the whole thing, is to try to help students catch up and to feel more connected to school and to, to do what they need to do. And it's having more adults in the hallway helps that. But yes, we had money that's helped us with that. And it's not gonna last forever. We'll see how long we have it.
If you were to increase the incentives for these student advocates, would you get more companies?
We have a couple of positions that we have that are full-time now, that are 40-hour, they're still hourly, but they can work up to 40 hours and then they have benefits, and that is helped. That's helped. We never had that until this year.
If you had like parents who would, yeah, okay, who would volunteer, like a couple hours a night.
That's what you're doing, remember?
Right.
We talked already. No, really what I think is that I know you have some really strong thoughts and opinions about this, but really what we need to stay out of those weeds for now, because there's all of us would have other things like what could we do or why could we do this or that, but if we don't get this plan put in time, there's a lot of things that aren't gonna happen. So if we could, I think we should put the whole advocate issue, because we've been talking about that in SIC as well. I think we should put that on another agenda, like after some of these plans are turned in. Because they're not gonna be in this plan, and so, it's kind of a separate.
But what you're saying is whatever plan could be put together, you've got resources to implement it.
I believe I have resources, it's just hard to get everything in place.
Yeah. Did that answer? Do we have any motions on the plan?
Keep
Annie?
talking.
Anything else we want to volunteer Dave for?
I just want to make sure, Pam, we're not cutting, counseling from the last year's plan out of the SCC budget.
I have to pay for it somewhere else now.
Yeah, but you are gonna pay for it somewhere else.
I hope so, yeah, that's
And,
my goal.
the quarter of a reading teacher, it seems like we had a full-time reading specialist last year, and now we're 3/4.
It's just.
In the
just
plan.
Semantics, I mean, if we needed money shifted to another thing for that fourth goal, than someone else that, and this is a really good plan, and I appreciate you reminding everyone, the plan that we came up with last year with our team here was so incredible, and it's come really easily into this year for next year. And when we have our TSI groups of students who need extra help, I feel like the plan was already kind of where it should be. But because we decided to reallocate some funds somewhere else, we had to cut some of those things that were already there. But, you know, to an extent, I can pay for those out of other budgets.
She says it's cut, it's not because that position got cut.
Right.
It's just not
It's the
being funded
funding.
as much through this pot, and it'll be funded
I
elsewhere.
just want the reassurance that we're not, it's my whole thing is don't catch teachers, right? That's the whole thing. We just don't catch teachers. So I want to make sure that we still have the counseling staff that we had last year, and that we still have the math teacher, and we still have the concessions. Those are my three.
They're the people in here, so.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to hear from you, because you're the one that is on that can communicate whether or not that funding is available.
It is available. I moved some things around to make sure that the teachers that we needed to have in the right places will still be there. So awkward. No, it's good. Sit by your side. That is better.
Yeah, I just don't want, the music teacher, it's critical that we have a full-time music turnout. But what I don't want to happen with this board is that we are robbing Peter to pay Paul.
I was just gonna say that. But yeah,
too, and I know that you have different budgets, and I know that some can be spent on some things, and
Yeah.
some can't, and then much more complicated. I just want your word that we keep the same teachers. We keep that reading specialist. I know that he's a favorite among the school, that we keep the counseling. We are understaffed with our counseling, and that we keep that full-time math position with the 2 part-time.
well, the math position was, and this is another place where, I use this for a second. This is the math teacher, I just need to be clear, is another place where student choice and how students are going to be in classes next year impacted how much of a teacher we could have. When we fill up a department, when we say, okay, we have this many math classes or this many language arts classes, we fill up the teachers according to kind of seniority and who is already a career teacher, meaning they are here more than 3 years. And this is since time immemorial, but until you have kids in high school, you probably don't pay attention to this. But when we look at those sections, depending on what kids are choosing, and we fill them all up, sometimes we don't have, oh, sorry. So the math teacher that we funded through Land Trust last year was an extra math teacher. He was there he lowered class sizes in other areas, and he helped start in our AP computer science program. And I pushed him to be full-time because I was pretty sure that we would have enough for him to do. But we really didn't. So we were creating things for him to do, which still helped immensely in our whole school. But this year he didn't have enough to do again. So to keep him half-time in Land Trust allows us to continue those AP computer science classes and also to give a little more room for math to lower class size. But this is a teacher who was going to be sent to another school, which is what was hurting our hearts so badly just because there weren't enough classes. But now he is going to stay half-time for sure because Land Trust and you guys felt like it was important, and I do too. So and then there's people who come and go every year, and that always causes us to kind of reshuffle things around, and it works, but it's complicated. But the people that were in the plan last year are gonna be back this year coming.
It sounds like the money's not needed to come from another pot because the teacher's not needed full-time.
That is, yes. Which was very surprising to us, but we had some other things shift, and that's what happened. So the teachers who are career teachers and who by contractual obligation need their full load, so they're full-time, left him now just with halftime. But I am really excited to try to keep him even halftime, and we'll see what happens.
Which teacher?
As a math teacher. And well, we're not really talking about names, no, because who knows what's gonna happen, it's crazy.
Right, well, I think we can entertain a motion. Either you wanna approve it, or you've got something you wanna change.
I've got a question for Pam.
Yes,
With goal 4, are you concerned with that not passing the review at the state? Given the constraints of school, like land trust funds, I don't know that we met the requirement for those funds, like, you know it way better than I do, so I'm just asking if you're like feeling confident about that, or if you're expecting it to get returned, given the constraints for school community council kind of trust land use.
I am interested to see what feedback we get. And I'm not sure, I mean, I told this body when we started talking about this, that I haven't tried to put a goal like this in for approval from the state. And I'm really curious, I know some of the people in the room here have looked up and found other schools who are successful. And we're gonna see.
Maybe, say that happens. We have, what is it, 60,000 is what we have budgeted, so maybe. I mean, it might be worth just thinking, what if that comes back, like, what would this body wanna do with that 60,000? Do we,
So basically a halftime something.
yeah, or do we put that money, put it back into some student advocates and then fill up, 100% of the counselor, I mean.
Or the reading teacher, I mean, there's definitely things we could do.
We don't have to, so.
Does it matter how it's worded? I mean, is it worded in a way that can be approved? I mean, like
worded to offset the math, and I don't know. Sorry, the way I had it in my budget was to offset the math classes. To keep the math class sizes smaller and to keep those class sizes at 23, and then we discussed whether or not 23, 24, 25 kids per class size. I wonder is this your best wording?
I was thinking, last time when we ran out of time, I honestly thought we would kind of wordsmith it together, and we can, that's why I have this plugged in. It just basically has to. It basically has to kind of say what we're doing and why, and how it's assisting our students with greatest need. And I mean, you look at it, there's math needs, there's reading needs, there's graduation and those interventions, the tier 2 interventions. So all of those things, if we can kind of tie it into that, but we can absolutely sit here and put something more in the wording. And remember that we already, with our own school funding, have made our freshman classes small. And last year they were really small as well. So that is already a total thing that we are committed to, and we feel like it makes a huge difference. And so we have continued to put our FTE toward those small class sizes for 9th grade especially.
and I gonna.
Uh-oh, she's gonna get the mic again.
Oh, you're gonna.
As she's getting that, since I'm right by the computer, I'll just talk loud. I think that the way it's in here now, being like helping with graduation rate increase, it's kind of just a different slant. But I thought it was interesting that it gives you a checkbox for fine arts as sort of a sub category. So I think that's encouraging.
Yeah.
I guess I was just gonna ask for some clarification, because I do think that if we keep it under graduation rates as the thing that it's going toward, I think the way it's written does make some sense. I don't know that I can see a way in which it makes sense that the arts program is gonna decrease math class sizes to the same amount of kids have to take math every year. So I don't really, I don't actually understand how that would work. So if you could explain.
So yeah, I just I took the idea from Vermont's SCC, who they didn't have enough money for band teacher, and that's how they wrote it. They wrote it specifically to offset their math teacher base. They wrote it so that they could have less students per class if they have electives every single class period offered. That's what I wrote, and they were approved.
Annie, I think what you're saying it was like a scheduling issue because they could only offer math or like,
Well, they went into it the same as I went into it, right? They just wanted a band teacher, like a full-time band teacher. And I said, how did you do that? How did you get SCC funding to do it? And they said, we justified it by lowering the class sizes of our math classes, which were particularly large, by offering electives for every single class period.
I guess I understand that logic. I don't know that would actually, I don't know that would actually make a difference to our school. I don't know if that's true though.
Have so many electives every period.
Right.
We have a good way to spread students out. But
So, anyway, so I'm only saying this.
Heard of that solution as the lowest hanging fruit to get it to the fruit.
And I-
To the band teacher, right, and the orchestra teacher, I'm just saying that's one wording that worked at Beaumont High School 3
Right.
years ago, and I think that we could probably copy that verbiage, whether or not that it's gonna decrease it. I think that we should decrease our math class sizes to 23, and I'm hearing that that's impossible no matter what, but I do think for all levels that really helps learning.
Right, and I guess the only thing, I'm just saying, I would worry that if we put that in there and that's not actually what would or could happen. I would feel uncomfortable putting that in there if in reality it's not gonna decrease our math class sizes, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I worry that putting it in there and it's not fully gonna be that would be true. I don't know if I'm putting something like that in there. So.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if, Pam, I don't know if your counselors know, is there data about which graduation requirements are keeping a percentage of students from graduating, and if the fine arts 1.5 credit requirement is part of that story? Like that data might be compelling, given we're connecting it to graduation rate, to say, 20% of the kids or 10% or 5 aren't graduating due to arts credit achievement. Then you've got some valid data to back it up from a graduation requirement.
My counselors, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, typically, I don't have any data in front of me, but typically fine arts isn't one of the requirements that we're stressing out about this time of year. Typically, at this time of year, we're seniors, they're finishing up their fine arts, or maybe a few students here and there, but the majority of students are mostly struggling with their core classes.
Do we have recovery credit for fine arts? For that credit and a half that they need to graduate? Is that available?
It's available through our school or other programs.
One thing that we could do as a body, I just thought of this, I think it's a good idea, is to talk to kids at the beginning and end of the year about their experience with school, kids that are in fine arts classes, or performing arts, I should say. And to see if they felt, because kids will tell you, oh yeah, I'm doing better this year. Oh yeah, whatever. If we could come up with something to talk to students and get some feedback from them, then it might help this to be more sustainable.
So you go. I just wanted to clarify. So you would mean like rewording this in a way that we're gonna gather qualitative data from students' experiences.
well, look at
You know what I mean?
look at these steps here, and they're really, really basic, help counselors to understand how students need to be in classes, like with performing arts or whatever. But we could put a number 6 or something, like if we provide all those things, including the rich learning environment for students in performing arts, and then the last step is, let's survey kids about how they feel like those classes have helped them at school. Just a really simple kind of survey.
Well, it kind of goes back to one of the public comments that came in around the reason their kid has stayed at East to graduate. We can insinuate that is because of the arts program. Maybe it's just a simple question, like, has your arts experience fostered your, aim towards graduation? Yes or no, or to what level? And being able to use that data to say, we notice that kids engaged in the arts are more likely to continue engaging in school and make that connection for graduation. Something really simple and easy, but it seems like a data-driven piece that either you say this percentage of kids are not graduating, and out of that percentage, it's due to arts credit, not solely, but it might be ELA and arts, but most kids are missing multiple pieces, and at least in our state, arts credit is part of the top reasons kids don't graduate, because it is a graduation requirement. It's not the top. Math is at the top, and ELA, but I think it's part of the story. And if it's helpful, we can work with our team at USBE to pull that data for East to say what percentage of students don't have art credit that are as part of their not being able to graduate, to be able to help with this report.
I think it's most compelling the way it's written. And I like this phrase, I mean, there's only one sentence, so we could definitely boost that, but just fine arts increases student engagement. Like it's this,
That's the bottom line.
yeah, and so I think, we want fine arts because it's something, kids want to come and they want to be on dance crew, they want to be with their magicals, like that's where my daughter's like network is. And that gets them to stay in school and graduate.
There's just a certain number of kids, there's just a certain number of kids that just that's their only connection. And it's so hard to flood that into the worksheet.
But you felt down those kids who came to the library and were like so passionate about sharing their experiences, that
Right, I just think like
that was their connection.
you can talk about all the advocacy in the world, you can talk about all the counseling centers and all of the brilliant work class teachers, but ultimately for many kids, it comes down to an orchestra teacher, or it came down to a dance teacher. And that teacher got that kid through high school, and we have to quit teaching kids as though they're a machine. We have to teach each kid on their level.
Well, which is why I think if that is our most compelling argument and based on what we've experienced, and I think that adding the sixth thing would be the thing that we were talking about anyway. So, right, so that's our truthful.
I just want to make sure that we give it every tool in the shed.
Right. I just wouldn't want to put any,
I would hate.
not false tools in the shed, right? I would love that, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So I think that is a true tool that we all feel is true and feel it's compelling, and I think that's good to have.
So can we, I mean, this isn't like an official vote, but are we getting I mean, we need to, but I'm asking a question right now. Do people mostly like the plan and the numbers and what we're funding? Do we just want to figure out how we want to finish wording so that because we do need to approve the language. And I think we're at a point we could do that tonight and not have to
Let's do it.
do some word rewriting.
That's one quick question about, so say we do some wordsmithing and we construct something that everybody feels comfortable and honest about, and we submit it and if it's rejected, do we get like another bite at that apple? Can we just, do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
we use the math cup, or we could do something maybe that, maybe the place to start would be what's being suggested, yeah, and then, if for some reason we have a problem, we can kind of rework it the way that you want, make it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just approve it the way it is now, and if it comes back to us, then we can.
We'll call a meeting, like if there's any kind of issue that, and there's always some little thing like, you didn't put this amount in, I mean, there's always some little thing. And from either the board or the state board. But we'll have a chance to fix something or to address concerns they have, and I'll get our fearless leader over here and just say, okay, we need a meeting and we'll figure out when to meet. How soon do you find out if it's approved? I have no idea. I mean, it's not like shut for us. At some point, they close down the portal, so we can't get any more, and I think that's on the 13th or something. So it's this week, which is why it was really good we're able to be together.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate, someone feels uncomfortable with this language, that it appears that we're manipulating, and I would like to support, like, what language change would you recommend, whoever's saying that, sorry, I can't tell in the room, to feel comfortable? Because I agree, like, we don't want to feel like we're manipulating the system to get what we want, and that we feel confident that if someone came and asked you, like, is this true? You could say that. I just want
I
to.
think it was Lynette saying,
Okay.
I think she's okay with it now, but she wouldn't feel comfortable if we changed it, focusing on lowering math class sizes, so.
Okay, it kind of gives that indication in the top line. Goal 4, build the program and maintain 20 to 30 students per class. But I think because it says maintain, we're not actually indicating we're lowering class size. Is that correct?
Is that meaning the arts classes or in the math class? Like what is that?
That is saying if we're gonna build performing arts classes, they cannot have more students.
Oh,
They need
gotcha.
to be
Okay.
like viable and
Okay.
have a rich array of students from all through the school and that can really change the world, because they really can. They need to be in the class, so.
Okay, so that's what that number's referring to.
I would probably make a motion to amend that number because I feel like it's appropriate for fine arts classes to sometimes not be as large as other classes. I know that can be really typical. For example, music theory is a class that has been put on the class registration and at most high schools, I think we read that music theory usually isn't more than 12 or 15. And so I'm not sure if I,
Different. But we
Yeah.
already, we carry that class depending on student numbers and they're not as high, but a band and orchestra. And you know, it's always dumb to go back to your own high school. I know we all do that, but there were probably 75 kids in my choir. It was a huge choir and it didn't seem that big when we went to competitions and stuff, you know what I mean? So part of what we need to do to make a class stay is we need enough students that it's viable. So that it stays.
Pam, did you get my? About my recommendation that we add the orchestra teacher, band teacher, go to the junior house and recruit.
They really do that already. They do. I'm serious. They have made the most incredible efforts to reach out. And my theory is that it's kind of a post-COVID issue with students not feeling comfortable to be in front of people and speaking and being heard and seen. And I think it's getting better. I think that's part of what we're dealing with.
I mean, I take a little issue with that just because, I mean, anyone who's been to the play and sees these kids, 200, 300 kids. I mean, I think it's creating something that they're proud of and that they want to be part of. And that's what I feel like we're trying to do is create a program that they want to be part of. And we need the strong teachers and we need the
I think we
people who are
need
willing to
time.
commit. They need time and they need people who are willing to commit.
Saying they have just been trying to promote and going and saying and performing for kids in junior highs and even some elementary schools, so.
So I
it's been good.
can't remember if we were just in on the conversation, but I was talking to Jenny and Rebecca and then some.
Hey.
Or a teacher where we take the kids from junior high and put them in and have like a high school orchestra, for a week in the summer, maybe a week. And a full class and call it high school. Or, because then we take that energy from Clayton, and the blending here has been an outstanding this program, and it's dead.
So I think that's a great suggestion. Can we just focus on maybe how we want to word number 4?
What if we vote on it? What if we just made that one change and we said, we put the bottom number at 15?
That's what I was
15
suggesting.
to
Because I think 15 is a,
15 to 25, and then we can vote on this. What do you think?
I think that's a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we amend number 4 to 15 to 25. Is the range of number 4? Yeah, the goal.
Yeah,
Number
yeah.
4. 15 to 20. 15 to 20.
For 1 year. Now, next year, we're still in this mess. We're gonna say, okay, we need more. And
After
we're
we all
gonna-
go on that New York trip, the number is gonna go away.
Oh, my God.
Do I have a second?
No, I can see the motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sharon agreed. Yeah. So we're gonna just amend it to read, build the band and orchestra program to maintain 15 to 20 students per class at least.
I'll second this.
And then we can, I guess we have to do so. So with that motion,
I'd like to make an amendment to your motion to also include that we add the 6th point that Pam has typed.
I just did, so it's in here if you guys wanna look at it.
I did.
It's there, because I think that's the important thing to hear student voices. And to hear what they think about how they've been, hold on.
Survey students,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, that's great.
Forgot.
so are you amenable to the amendment? Adding that in with it? Okay, so Is there any discussion about those two changes to the document?
And then we'll see what the state says. Those are the steps that I think, well, that we thought kind of that might make sense to take, just if anyone doesn't remember.
And Ned, we're just going with the document as it was emailed out. We're just adding this point and then changing the class size requirement. If there's no discussion of debate, I think we'll call a vote. All in favor of the motion to add in number 6 and change the class sizes from 15 to 30 to 15 to 20. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plan or to make any other changes? Where's
I'll
Elizabeth
make a
and
motion.
Dave?
I will make a motion to approve the plan.
Do we have any discussion, any further discussion on approving the plan? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Well, Pam will submit it and then she will let us know how it goes.
And then we can start talking about everything else we need to talk about, because there are a lot of things, let me tell you.
Would
Okay.
you like to move into the principal's report? Was there anything else you wanted to share or discuss that way?
Well, I was thinking of stuff from ethics, and I don't know what Brenda's gonna talk about, but we're really thinking hard about our calendar for next year. And the really important thing about that calendar is that we are totally in alignment with Highland and West. 100%. Bell schedules, early out days, like the ACT day, all the things that used to trip us up are better now because we have worked together the last 2 years with the SIC chairs and the principals. It's been really, really good. I'm gonna say this to you because you may have some sway, because you guys tend to have some sway around here. We are trying to have one lunch next year. One lunch is a little longer for all the students. It will take out a whole transition time when kids, I'm gonna wander around and go to every single bathroom and see my friends. And the transitions in our school are really difficult to manage, and the more we can get kids in class learning, the better. So to have one lunch would do that. And I know there's some different things that we have to play with, but we've actually done one lunch at school a couple of times when we've had a need, and it's worked really well. And the kids seem way more relaxed. Even with 10 more minutes, they do not have that frenetic, oh my gosh, I can't eat, I can't talk to my friends, I can't get to class, you know, the whole thing. So if you hear anyone bringing that up, if you hear anyone bringing that up, the 3 principals are very, very strongly trying to get that to happen. And we think it will impact our students in 100 ways. It will be huge. We also are getting all of our dates ready for the end of the year for seniors. There are like 3 pages of information that go to seniors to get them graduated in time and all the things, and it's crazy. I'm gonna take the whole SIC report. And we're gonna start, it's just, those are the things that are on my mind. It's the beginning of 4th quarter, graduation is gonna be in 3 seconds. Jostens was at school today for students who've ordered like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or invitations or whatever, and we had like 4 huge boxes and most of them were picked up. Kids are excited to get graduated. And we're excited. Yeah.
Quick question with regard to the combining of lunches. What's the pros and cons that you see with regard to that? And is there capacity for that many students to eat in the lunchroom at the same
If
time?
we add the time, it's fine. And our student body, the last time I think this came up, our student body was quite a bit bigger. And so there were some issues, but even West, who has many, many more students than us, when they have practiced with one lunch with that extra time, it's been fine. And then the students who want to drive somewhere and get lunch, which many of them do, instead of rolling in 15 minutes late for class, they actually would have time to go and then to be back.
So how long would it be?
It would probably be about 40 minutes instead of 30. So I'm just saying, one less transition, that would be an enormous benefit to us.
You've been in our hallways when class change happens, have one less of those.
I think it's important, there's a social part for kids, because their friends are in a different lunch.
Yeah,
and
that
so
too.
the kids really prefer a same lunch, but also we have, a number of staff, teachers and faculty and our kids who are diabetic, and that second lunch is the way for them.
So true, what she said, that's so true. Yeah, the social aspect, and the other thing is, kids, if all of their friends are in the other lunch than them, they just go to both lunches. They miss their class, they're failing, and then you guys are like, what's going on? And they're like, I just, whatever excuse they make, so. If the fire marshal can, it's a fire marshal thing, you know, we have our own fire marshal, and he comes and he walks around and. But I think we're in a different place than we were, several years ago when we thought about this again, and I think it'll be huge, so. If you have you wanna write letters to anyone, as soon as we hear any, I keep every other day, I'm saying, hey, do we have an answer on this? Do we have an answer? Can we do this?
Who are you waiting to hear from?
I'm waiting to hear, well, Kelly Orton is in charge of food services, and I'm sure he has to go up, like the fire marshal is above him or whatever. So he has to feel good about it, and then we'll see. So I'll keep you posted. We can have a letter writing campaign.
In with the fire marshal.
Yep, there you go.
Probably Dave works then.
Oh,
I'm just, I'm so proud of our kids. They are doing so many wonderful things. And as I was leaving from one meeting to the other today, our tennis team was playing, our softball team was playing, both girls and boys lacrosse were playing tonight, and the sun and everything, and I just went, man, it is a great day to be a leopard. Exactly, I was getting there. So that's it for me. I'll go home and go, didn't tell them the most important thing, but I'll email you all. Thanks.
Lynette.
Okay, so we finished up our SBO elections and our class officer elections, and I am delighted to report that I know that last year we struggled getting kids to run at all. I don't think anybody ran opposed at all. And this year we had, in the SBOs, almost every single one of them was a race, and they were actually going against somebody. And there were races in almost every class office as well. And so we're pretty much full up on SBOs and class offices, which is really great. Even the sophomore class next year for my ninth graders is, I would say, 2/3 full, which is up from our numbers last year, so it's really good. I'm really excited about that. We have a lot of great kids. And then we've got prom coming up this Saturday, Salt House. If anybody wants to chaperone, let me know.
Yeah, parents. Are you
It's,
needing more chaperones?
I would love more chaperones. Love more chaperones.
It's hard to know, like in our school, we know exactly where everyone should be. It's a new space, so.
Yeah, I'm a little stressed because, yeah, we usually know where we set people and I don't know what the space is gonna look like. So the more parents, the better, especially because this is our biggest dance. If you come to our other dances and there's like, it looks like there's 70 kids out there, there's more. There's gonna be like, more like 1,000 to 1,200 kids at this one. And they can get up to more than no good. So the more parents, the better. And they dance really early, so that's fun to watch. And then I think that's our biggest stuff, and after that, we're looking at senior night in May. And wrapping up, so things are calming down after third week of break.
Awesome, thank you.
Pam took part of mine, and the only other thing we have to add is that we are really trying to finalize all of the fourth term dates, and I believe Marissa is doing a good job keeping those up on the calendar. So dates such as when finals are, when textbooks need to be back, all of that. So we tried really hard to not overwhelm students with everything being due on like the same week. If your math final's not on the same week as your science, as your projects doing language arts, so we try to be mindful of that. So those dates are hopefully on the calendar the week before the last week of school, and then just finalizing things like your book and stuff like that.
Brent, could you take like a minute or two and just explain what SIC is and who sits on it?
Yeah, SIC is the School Improvement Council, and we have a counselor, 2 administrators, 4 association reps, a non-academic rep, an academic rep, and a classified rep, and student government. Yeah, anyway. And we're just in charge of
making sure the school runs smoothly and safely and approving and not approving things that would disrupt the learning of our kids.
When you say organization, what's that mean?
That's the teacher association.
You wanna just fill in a little bit on the thing this body page SAC, we just started talking about that. Well, this help.
Yeah, we skipped Elizabeth. I was gonna throw her in right at the
Yeah.
end. Yeah,
So the draft that you all came up with.
she's talking about the cell phone
The
policy.
cell phone policy that you drafted, then we take that to the school improvement council, and we just did that tonight before this meeting. And so everybody has a chance to look at that. And then we'll take our next steps from there, which would be to go to our faculty and get faculty feedback. And we just are just starting that process.
And that draft came out of Elizabeth's subcommittee that was of parents and faculty who had expressed interest. So for those who weren't aware.
So
of that.
any changes or policies that are gonna be at the school need to go through the school improvement council and approved by the school improvement council.
So,
That's
Nice.
nice.
oh yeah.
Okay, good, good.
And Pam, is the goal to have a policy decided or voted on or something by the end of the school year, like to be ready for the fall?
That would be wonderful, but the way our things go, it's kind of slow, and we have a lot of groups that need to see and give input. And we're like, just even today, we were comparing board policy. It's 4 pages and trying to get a sense, it'll take us a little while.
Okay.
We would love to have a decision made by the end of the year. We'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Thanks, Brenda.
And Kevin's always very verbose, so we might be here for a while.
Yes, yes, my name's Kevin, I'm from the Policy Center. Just a few things going on, just to reiterate what Pam was talking about. Fourth quarter is upon us, the race to graduation, and we're excited. At least for the students that I know today, I don't know if it was the sun starting a new quarter, but everyone seemed to be in a good mood. At least down at the Counseling Center today, so we're excited, we're ready to get going. We are right in the middle of still meeting with our 10th graders and our individual college and career readiness meetings with those students. We did have a little turnover, and so counselors at the time being, we are scheduling our own appointments and doing the appointments and doing all the follow-up, and so bear with us as we're trying to do all that ourselves, until we get somebody that can there to help us. And yeah, and once the grades come out, we're gonna start reevaluating seniors and start, that final push to graduation and contacting students, going through their plans, getting set up with whatever credit recovery we need. And so, yeah, we're hoping to get to that, first thing that part of our goal for graduation this year. That's gonna be the big focus here going forward.
Great. Elizabeth, did you feel fulfilled with the cell phone policy? I think?
I feel so fulfilled.
Okay.
Thank you, that's what I.
It's a huge thank you to Elizabeth for heading that up, so.
Thank you for considering it,
Yeah.
and for all the input you guys have given, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think we have any other business except that next month is our last meeting for the school year. So we talked about some of the agenda items. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, just let Pam and I know and we'll put it on the agenda.
Wrap up things, wrap up the other conversations.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, do we have it's on Monday, May 8th at 4:30 at East.
Can I ask for an item to be added to the agenda around changing the perception of East High in the community?
Will you take a note of that, Annie?
But I'm sorry.
Will you say it one more time, Jen?
Yeah, changing the perception of East High in the surrounding community. I think there's some negative perception, and I think a concerted effort towards the greatness that East has, and yes, continuous improvement to go, but there's definitely a need for enhanced optics, I think, on East High, and to bring awareness that there are some amazing things. I think that perception of being a failing school is holding back the potential of East.
She meant to have that added to the agenda as a potential agenda item for next. Thanks, Jen. We'll talk, Pam and I. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? All we need is Dave's second. We don't need to debate it or amend it. All in favor? All right.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, and if you can help cleaning up the chairs and the tables, we need to put those back.
Thanks for having a Zoom option.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.